There we go. Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the live stream today. I am Randy Forbes with Wilderness Labs, handle a lot of the marketing stuff, developer advocacy. I work with Adrian and Jorge a ton. We are having a couple technical issues with Brian joining us today. So hopefully he will get those resolved and join us shortly. But we're going to get started right away. Great product to share with you today. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. We'll be taking some of those as we go through. We will have time for Q&A at the end as well. So Jorge, Adrian, I am going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy. And yeah, we are really excited to be here today. We're going to talk about a little product called ProjectLab board. We're going to give you a little overview of the product and then do some demos and show you how you can use this new product from Wilderness Labs to rapidly prototype enterprise applications and even some hobby work as well. So Randy, if you want to switch over to my screen and we can pull up the slides. Fantastic. Yes, and we should do some introductions. So my name is Adrian Stevens. I'm a consultant for Wilderness Labs, and I do a lot of work on the drivers. So if you've used Meadow and used Meadow Foundation, I get my hands in a lot of the code there, and you might occasionally see me do presentations here as well. And I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Jorge Ramirez. And Jorge, do you want to give yourself a little introduction?
Thank you. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I'm Jorge. I'm developer advocate for Wilderness Labs. I have the exciting and awesome job of just making projects for you guys so you try to experiment and get to know our platform and see how it actually exceeds over other platforms that are there. So I'm very excited to be here and ready to, give you a little bit of a glimpse of what we have here with this new product.
Fantastic. And so you can see it here. This is the ProjectLab board, and we're going to talk about all the cool features that we have. But I want to talk just a little bit about the mission of Wilderness Labs and really Meadow as a platform. And we could talk about this a lot, but the quick version here is really we want to make hardware as easy as building mobile applications and web development and web dev for .NET developers. A lot of us come from a Xamarin background. We love the magic of Xamarin, rapidly build mobile applications cross-platform. And we love that vision. We love the .NET technology. We love C#. We want to bring that to the mobile ecosystem. And we know that the hardware ecosystem and hardware can be complex, and it's not necessarily an easy space to get into. We're hoping to solve that problem. And so with that, we're delivering an all-in-one project board. This has a ton of features. Pardon me as I jump through. So the goal here is to give you a platform where you can really build anything in the IoT space with .NET and C#. And one of the big things here, one of the big barriers to entry of hardware is the hardware itself. It's the soldering. It's the connecting the wires and the peripherals. Jorge, do you remember when you first started building hardware?
Yeah. It was kind of interesting. It was such a very it was kind of like an analogous story when I was starting to go into mobile dev. I was a pure .NET C# developer, and I wanted to tackle iOS and Android, and then I met Xamarin, and then I'm like, perfect, I can stay in my .NET ecosystem and all the awesome things that I can do in C#, I can do it in other platforms. And it feels like kind of similar what we have here with Meadow. And at the beginning when we started with Arduino, remember that we use all our .NET skills, and we can actually build hardware and make IoT solutions.
Yeah, and I want to move on, but I want to show this. So this is, we first get to hardware. It often looks like this. There's wires. You hook this up and your screen doesn't work. Where's the failure? Is it the software? Is it plugged in? Is one of those wires loose? In this case, you may be able to see this, but actually one of the wires is loose. And it can be challenging when you first get to hardware. And I promise you, it's like everything else in technology, where you get used to it pretty fast. But when it's your first stop in hardware, that can be overwhelming. And so we've really tried to solve that problem with the ProjectLab board. And you can see right here, it has a ton of hardware built in. So just like you see here on my breadboard where I've manually hooked up a display, well, that display is now included. There's a 240 by 240 16-bit per pixel color TFT display. It's a beautiful display, high res, super sharp, built in, you don't have to wire it up. A ton of other things on here. Jorge, sorry, I think it's autoplay and you're going to bump back here. But Jorge, do you want to talk about some of the other peripherals that are on this board?
Yeah, of course. So as you can see, we are packing a lot of, like, we wanted to cover try to make it this like a good a lab to go per like, to say it in one way. We have a display there. We have a light sensor. So, you know, no more carrying around some sensors around. It's just starting to plug in things on your breadboard and wherever you go is just included there. As well, for a BME 688, it's a temperature, pressure, humidity, and air quality sensor. I don't know why it keeps.
Yeah, so my apologies. I'm gonna do my best to cover this. It is auto playing, so it's jumping. So I'm gonna be quick with my fingers. So
I see. Okay. Yeah. So we have a very powerful temperature sensor there. We also have an inertial movement accelerometer, the BME 1270, and that one is also pretty cool. It's like almost like when you have your phone. I remember when I was, you know, the phone era was big. You made apps that you were actually taking advantage of accelerometer, just tilting around the phone to try to get that X, Y, and Z axis. We can do the same here with the ProjectLab. So say if you can, I don't know, rotate the board, and then you can make a servo motor move, or maybe you can maybe control a rover, and then you'll like make it move forward or turn around as you're moving and you're rotating the board, for example. I mean, there's the possibilities with accelerometer. There are, you know, you can come up with many cool things. And
you're going to show us some of that later on in code too, right?
Yes,
fantastic.
For sure.
So quick intro here, but yeah, you see it on the screen. Accelerometer, atmospheric. We've got buttons, displays. We're going to go on to all this a little bit later on. But what's really powerful here is not just the things that are built in, but the connectivity. And actually, no, I'm going to intentionally go back on a slide here. If you might have seen on the right-hand side here, we've got something called these Grove connectors on the right. And then on the lower right, we call a stemma or a quick connector. And then I just have your eyes go all the way over to the left side as well. We have something called Microbus. Now, all of these things are standard ways of connecting hardware and peripherals. I'm going to show you some of those in a little bit. But what that does is it unlocks this massive ecosystem of hardware where you can buy parts off the shelf. They're standardized. And so you can add to this board without having to do that wiring. So you've got all these wonderful built-in peripherals and sensors, but then we can plug things into this board as well and extend the capabilities, again, without the overhead of soldering, without wiring, without worrying about whether that little connection is correct. And so this is a nice example of the ecosystem. So these are on the left-hand side, these are Grove peripherals. And we have a ton supported on ProjectLab. So Meadow Foundation has drivers built in for most of these sensors already today. So not only can you plug these in quickly with something called the Grove connector that Jorge will show you in the demo, but you can also get these parts up and running in a couple of lines of code, the beauty of Meadow Foundation. And then again, on the right-hand side, we have the Grove connectors, and similar thing where we've got a number of drivers supported already. Again, no soldering, plug them in. And you can see a huge variation here too. We've got temperature sensors, distance sensors, buttons, moisture, just adding on displays. So really makes this an incredibly flexible prototyping and testing development board. I mentioned a little bit about, all right, I see a really good question. Anything about Modbus? Yeah, you know what? Good catch. I'm sorry, I'm jumping back and forth on the slides now. So go back to the hardware. So if you actually look on the bottom where it says the RS485, so there is an RS485 driver, and Meadow Foundation does have Modbus support. So yes, ProjectLab does support Modbus, really indicating, this is a platform, this is a prototype board that's designed for enterprise and ready for those types of enterprise integrations. Thank you. Great question. Talked about this a little bit already, but Meadow Foundation. And Meadow Foundation is really the secret sauce that's going to make all of this really easy. And this is the driver layer, written in C#, written in .NET. Jorge, do you remember how many drivers we have currently in Meadow Foundation?
I think we just passed the 200 mark on drivers, which I think is pretty exciting. It was really the power of Meadow Foundation is is so amazing, especially about how it's so universal of how easy it is to change peripherals as well. And most of these Grove peripherals, what they have is, what we can do is just simply inherit from existing drivers we had a Meadow foundation. So it was kind of like quite easy for us to make all these drivers that are from the Grove ecosystem, at least.
That is beautiful. And again, we'll show some code in just a minute here, and we'll get to the good stuff. Oh, look at that. I think it's demo time. So let's jump into the demo. We're going to get this slide out of the way. The slides are going to be here. Jorge, I think we should switch over to your screen. Let's see a little bit of code, and let's take a look at the project board in action.
Sounds good. Let me share my screen real quick. Share.
Beautiful.
Share this. I screenshot.
Fantastic. We'll get your screen share in just a moment. You know what I'm going to do actually while you're doing that? I'm going to give you guys a little look at some of the hardware we have on this board here as well.
There we go.
Oh, you ready to go? All right. Sorry. Over to you, Jorge.
All right. Thank you. I don't know what happened there. So I have a pretty cool set of samples here and a demo that I want to show you. You can share my, you see my screen? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So what we have here right now is we have the ProjectLab, and we have 3 different Meadows here. So the idea is I want to go like really quickly and just show you 3 basic, 3 demos that it might look simple, but they're foundational for you to grasp and understand why the intention and how easy it will be to scale these and tweak them onto your well to make your own better solutions, depending on what you intend to do. So basically, let's start with the first one. So the first one is simply, it's an old Hackster project that I've made before, and it's actually the temperature monitor project that is on Hackster. I don't know if you remember this project here. Let me see if I can.
And what I love in the technology space, old is 6 months. but I think the great thing here is it's porting existing code, which is really fun too. So if you're in the Meadow ecosystem, you've already written applications, it's actually not going to be a big lift to move it over to the ProjectLab board.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see here, we have your build own temperature monitor with Meadow. It's a popular project. We're also almost close to 2,000 views. And you can see how easy what it is to tweak this project onto the ProjectLab. And the thing is that with ProjectLab, it not only measures temperature, it also does pressure and humidity as well. So you can see that tweaking the UI a bit, I'm showing the temperature, the pressure, and the humidity right here. So it's all reading from the BME 688, which is this guy right here. And let me jump into the code a bit to show you a little bit what's about.
And I'll just make a comment here too. What's a lot of fun with this board too is you'll notice we're using what we call surface mount components. And so they're obviously the small versions. So you can get a BME 680, 688 printed on a little PCB and wire that as well. But it's very small. It's integrated on the board. And you're not worried about the wiring now, are you?
No, not at all. Like, and the amazing thing is just how easy it was this to set up. So if you can see here, we'll have a pinout for the project board shortly out for everybody to see. But basically, it was just to update the initialize method. It's just telling Meadow, hey, these are the components that we are using, and they are connected to these pins. Just let's make objects and just work with them. So initialize method. Here, I just replaced the standard analog temperature sensor that is on Meadow Foundation core. I just added a NuGet package, which is the BME 688, and that's it. You just simply need to just initialize it with default I2C address for the bus of communication, and also add the updated event handler, which is just tells you periodically like all the readings from the sensor. And finally, we just tell which pins is the display on board connected to. So in this case, it has some analog pins that we can also use for digital. So yeah, so after that, then is basically just
Actually,
just
before you scroll up, Jorge, if you don't mind just zooming back, and we had a request us to zoom in on the font a little bit. So if you mind scrolling in.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just do a little interrupt here, and just I always love this. You called out, but I want to show it again. So line 45, instantiate a BME 680 object. Right, that is instantiate an object that represents the sensor on the board.
Yeah.
And there's just two arguments. One is creating an I2C bus. This is an I2C peripheral. It's connected to the bus. You don't have to wire it. It uses address 76. That is a standard address of the BME 680. One line of code, you now have an object that interacts with the hardware. Everything else with the BME is just C#.
Exactly.
Line 46, just wiring up an event handler to get updates.
That's it. Yeah. And for micrographics, also our in-house graphics library, have Meadow Foundation, is such a great library. You just need to instantiate the display. In this case, is the ST7789 that comes with the hack kit as well. You just instantiate a micrographics. You pass in a display. Micrographics is like, all right, got it. I know the dimensions, and just let me know what orientation or the rotation that you want your display. In this case, I'm putting at 90 degrees, so it shows up right next to the Meadow board. And that's pretty much it. You just do graphics.draw, and then you can start drawing text, drawing rectangles, drawing circles. And finally, in the updated method, it's returning. What is it returning? It's returning a tuple of a temperature, humidity, and pressure. And so I'm doing the draw text here, just showing the temperature, the pressure, and the humidity. And the awesome thing right now of like one of our latest releases is that is all unitized. So you don't need to come up like temperature values come from 0 to 24. You need to make a formula and try to calculate which units you need. We don't do any of that. You just do value into the Celsius, and you can do Kelvin, you can do Fahrenheit, you can do all these different kinds of other what's it called? Units.
Units.
Yeah. So it's pretty awesome. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you for this project. Let's jump in and make things a little more interesting, because there was all these talk about thousands of peripherals that we're unlocking with this board for these connectors. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug this board here, and let me disconnect this one here, move it out of the way. Let me plug this one in. There we go. And finally, what am I playing today with this? This time is going to be a soil moisture sensor. You notice the standard Grove connector that we have here. We just simply connect it to the connector, the Grove analog pin connector here, and now we just plug it in here. It goes this way. There we go.
All right, so you just hooked up our new peripheral by plugging in a single cable.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is beautiful.
You're right. And so I am going to sorry, I'm a little over the place with the window. I want to zoom out a bit. Okay, so let me put this here. And let's start the app, and basic refresher about what am I showing. So this other project that I'm showing here will be the soil moisture sensor. And you notice that, we have an LED bar graph there with some resistors and another soil moisture sensor, but I'm using the Grove one, and it's just one NuGet package away. So you add that NuGet package to your project, and well, I don't have the capability to connect a LED bar graph. I don't have a bar graph on the board. So what I ended up doing, I just drew myself a bar graph on my display. And so let me put here a little yogurt cup that I have here with some water right here. And let's dip this guy here. And you'll see how second by second, you can see how it's changing.
And this is beautiful. This is a really nice example of how we get to think about hardware where, if we're coming from the mobile space, the web space, where we're set on single screen generally. We know we're targeting a computer monitor or a mobile screen. With hardware, we get to be creative with how we want to communicate and interact with our users. And I love this. You can display this as an LED bar graph. You can use a full color display. We can use a monochrome display. Lots of ways of communicating with our users, and we get to have that creativity as we build hardware. And this is a beautiful prototyping platform. We can try peripherals rapidly and swap things in and out.
For sure, yeah. So let me go ahead and show you a little bit about what this project is about. So as I said, so we have how many growth packages do you think we have out like available right now, Adrian?
Oh, it's over 30. I want to say 35.
Right? Yeah. I think that's about the ballpark. So we have here, as I mentioned, we're adding in this project for the moisture meter, we're adding the TFT SPI display that has this long list of displays that we're supporting. And here's our ST7789. And we are including the new Meadow Foundation Grove moisture sensor. So that's it. That's all the packages you need to include here. And for the project, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for you. So we had a moisture sensor in Meadow Foundation. Is this the same driver or is this a different driver?
It'll be a different driver. The one that we were using on the other project is called Meadow Foundation Capacitive. And so it has a different technology of how you use the soil moisture sensor. So in this case, we notice we're almost at 5.5 thousand downloads for this package. But in the case for the one at Grove, it just simply uses just one analog port. And as for the capacitive, I think it was using a digital I/O input.
Right.
Yeah. And
now what's done with the Grove drivers, in some cases, the Grove driver is actually wrapping existing drivers in Meadow Foundation. So this is in this case, it actually is a different driver. We have cases where there's a display, and what the Grove driver does actually wraps up the existing Meadow Foundation driver, simplifies it because it's then pre-configured for the Grove connection, and it makes it really easy. But we leverage the benefits of all the work that's already been done in Meadow Foundation. So you've got really robust tested drivers for
sure.
Verticals.
Yeah. Maybe later at the end, we have time, we can show a little bit about maybe the button for Meadow, for the Grove button peripheral. You can see how easy it was to import that driver over to our library. But going back to the moisture meter, this is basically it. So I have my RGB LED, the one that is on board. I always love that thing to try to give me user feedback when it's starting. So you can see when it starts, goes to red, and by the end of the initialize method, it goes back to green. So I know that the initializing process has been completed. But the interesting thing here will be adding the moisture sensor. So we're telling Meadow, hey, I have a moisture sensor connected to you on the analog 01. And so give me an object. And after that, that's it. That's all you need to do. You just add our famous updated event handler here. And I'm just showing, grabbing the percentage. Now, Grove give us a value that goes from 0 to 750 as I was calibrating it. And I'm using one of Meadow Core's extension methods. I'm using a mapping. So I'm grabbing that range of values and just give me 0 to 100. And that's it. Then doing a formula just does that conversion for me. And I just needed to created a display controller, which basically is trying to abstract all the display stuff. And this is where we're initializing it. The controller also has initialize method. So I can initialize my display as we've seen before. And we have the update percentage. So here is where I'm actually drawing. I'm drawing a rectangle, and then depending on the percentage, I'm actually drawing the colors to make this little bar graph here.
And of course, if I wanted to look at this code, this is all open source and available today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we have a repo that is called Meadow ProjectLab samples. And I've been slowly updating like the most relevant and the most viewed projects from Hackster that you can build with the Hackit. And I've been porting them over to our for this repo as a starting point to get you familiar of how to use all the peripherals. And as you can see here, we have a companion app that I just saw spin up very recently, which brings us up to my third and last demo here. And so this would be, let me stop this project here. And we're actually going to control our board using Bluetooth with a Xamarin app. So let me remove this. There we go. Let me take this out of the way. Perfect. Now let's start this guy here. So in this case, I just wanted to show you how quickly it was to build a Bluetooth application for Meadow. And I'm going to show you real quick the ProjectLab companion app. Let me actually turn off this light, so that's fine. Okay. So you can see it's going red. The Meadow board is initializing and is starting all the Bluetooth initialization. And now it's ready when it turns to green. Perfect. I love that. And what we have here is a Xamarin Forms app that I made, a companion app for the ProjectLab. And the idea is that you have both flavors that if you want to connect via Wi-Fi using our Maple library. So Maple is a way for us to make Meadow turn into an ultralight server, and then our companion apps or your browser or computer can act as a client and send requests to the Meadow board to do things, either to set data or actually gather data. But I am going to actually do Bluetooth right now. So you can see that once it's ready, you can see a Bluetooth icon here, like flashing a little bit as waiting like to represent discovery mode. So I click Bluetooth and now it's going to start looking. And you can see right there already it has found it. And the next thing here is I'll click the connect button, the pair button. And now you can see it says Bluetooth paired here. And now you can start using it and start, playing with it. So if I can just, as of now, we can do is maybe we can control the onboard LED by toggling the LED on and off. I can make it blink as well. And all this is just doing, over Bluetooth, just using Meadow Foundation libraries. So for LEDs, we have pulse, we have blinks, things like that. But the better, like another cool thing is we can also get data. So we can do a read sensor, and it'll just immediately just give me the values here. So it has the temperature right here, the humidity, and the pressure. But we don't stop there. We also have the light sensor as well. We have the accelerometer that we're still in the works for that driver. We're hoping to release it really soon. So we have the full capabilities of the board ready to go. And so, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show you. And notice if I also unpair, I'm just sending a signal to Meadow saying like, hey, we're disconnecting. And he's go, perfect. And now goes back into discovery mode in case you want to connect it with another device or do other things. Let me show a little bit of the code here, and then I can hand it out to you because he has another exciting things showing for the Microbus. But as you can see, I added a folder called connectivity, and I have the Xamarin Forms app that's called Mobile Companion. Try to make it like easy to for the naming, and the Meadow connected sample has actually both the Maple and Bluetooth projects baked in. So notice here I have the icons for the Bluetooth, and I also have the Wi-Fi logos as well. So when I start on the Wi-Fi project, it's going to start blinking, and then it will start being fixed once it has joined your network. And as per the app itself, we initialize the controllers for the BME680, for the light sensor, and it's just passing the bus object, because you need an object that is going to be the protocol for communicating with these devices. So you just instantiate the protocol I2C object, and you just pass it to this to these peripherals. So after that, then you're good to go. You're ready to use these peripherals. And we're just one line of code away, depending on what flavor of the app you want to work on. So I have, in this case, I have uncommented the initialized Bluetooth to start the Bluetooth app, and you can just simply do and comment one or the other, and then you just can also do Maple. And even Meadow is capable of handling both at the same time. In this case, you'll have to write logic to support both of them. Right now is a design decision that I just want them to keep it separated to not overcomplicate things. And so, as I mentioned, our pattern of having controllers for every display to abstract code from the main class, we had our standard display controller that I've shown you before. I have an LED one that is for the onboard LED, so you can see initialize method, initializing with onboard pins here. And we have the set color for toggle, start blink, start pulse. And you're noticing that we're changing colors. I have a get random color that is just giving me just a random color to just make it a little bit more interesting. But you can see it's very basic code. Like it's something that is very intuitive. There isn't any pins that you got to take high and low and write true or false, anything like that. You just stick to the initialize method, tell Meadow what your device is connected to, which pins, and then you can just use it like you would be working on an app or using a desktop application, saying a button, and then you add an event handler, and then you just do your thing. You just make the logic intuitive and easy to understand. Any thoughts here, Adrian?
This is just amazing. And again, all this code is open source, right? This is all available today?
Exactly. Yes. And I also, lastly, I made the Bluetooth and Maple request handlers. I make them all separated into its own classes. So for Maple, as I mentioned, I'm exposing some API endpoints that you would use with the app or a browser, and you just send over requests, just calling the toggle, blank, pulse, get BME data, get the BH1750 for the light sensor. And as for the Bluetooth server, it's slightly a little bit different paradigm. You need to create what is called a Bluetooth tree definition, and then you also expose the characteristic, which think of it as mailboxes that you'll put data there, and then with the app, you'll just reach out to that mailboxes and get whatever data is written there. So basically, it's kind of what we're doing here. You're instead you're creating characteristics, which is what they're called in Bluetooth, and depending on what characteristic we're actually accessing, we're doing one action upon that. And so again, all this code is all available on Bluetooth on our GitHub repo, and there's also tons of information for Bluetooth in our developer website. So that's pretty much the extent of the 3 demos that I wanted to show you. I could give it out to Adrian because I think he has something exciting also showing for Microbus. So,
absolutely. We can show a little bit more. I'd be happy to. And I want to call it here as well that, of course, we've got the ProjectLab sample repo, and this is a really fantastic place to start. But of course, it's still Meadow, and it's still going to run Meadow and Meadow Foundation. And so you still have access to all the samples in Meadow Foundation. We showed you Grove earlier with the moisture sensor. There's another repo entirely dedicated to Grove peripherals. And there's, again, 30 plus more samples there. And so you're not limited to the source code here, but these are some really great examples of slightly larger projects running on the ProjectLab board. Yeah, beautiful. You want to pull some of this up?
Yeah, sure. Let me pull up the Grove repo here.
And we'll do the Microbus. We don't want to, I think you really covered a lot, but I will show the Microbus quickly just because it is a lot of fun. And while you're doing that, I'm going to switch my camera over. And,
sure. Yeah. So yeah, it's we are having that naming meadow.foundation.grove. We have .featherwings, and we also have .microbus. And as they're, we have some documentation here with an explanation about a little bit about what we're covering in this specific repo. We're doing about, if you're falling first in, or you're finding for the first time what Meadow Grove is, we go into more context about what Meadow Foundation actually is, and showing their brothers repos that we have available. We're also open to request new drivers. So we're constantly active in this public Slack channel. So whenever there's a user that is asking for a driver, we just file it as an issue on our GitHub repo, and then we can start looking for it. And in the next release, we'll start queuing up for some more drivers. And we're also open for, this is all open source again. So you can also look at some of the drivers that we built here, and you can see how easy it is to import some of these drivers. And maybe you can even do a pull request, and you can contribute some drivers yourself. So in this case, there's a Meadow Foundation Grove button, and this is basically it. This is just the driver. It's just inheriting from the push button existing driver that we have, Meadow Foundation core, and we're just exposing it with these constructor methods here to just tell it that it's a Grove one. And so we give some values that are based on the Grove design. In this case, like the button is always internal pull up, because we have pull ups, we have what's the other one? Down, pull down resistors as well. So we got to give them the proper specs depending on their hardware requirements. But this is basically it. This is just one driver, and it took us 2 minutes or 1 minute to actually import. It was actually pretty exciting. And I want to show you. So we got the Grove Creator Kit that has 40 drivers. I think we cover almost 35 of them. Some of them they still need some work, and some of them needs, I think, a one-wire support that I don't think we still haven't implemented that, but it's in the works. But it was really fun to actually import all this. So we have already, over 200 drivers available to play with.
So much good stuff to cover. And I think we're getting close time here. I will do a little Microbus demo really quick. And what I might do is just switch over to this. Hard to follow all the greatness that Jorge just showed you, but I will show you Microbus because it's not as common in North America. And so some of you might be familiar with this. So you see on the left-hand side of our ProjectLab board, we have these called Microbus headers. And there's 2 of them. So of course we can run 2 parts. And of course they're standard headers. So you can have a look at that. And they're let's see, look at the focus. But the pin definitions are all on here. But what's beautiful, of course, is that we can now really effectively do plug and play hardware. I've got some good examples here. So here's a great little peripheral. This is actually a little analog joystick. Give this to it. It's just that much work to add this to our ProjectLab board. We've got some displays. I love these ones here. This is an LED display. It's a 16:9. I've got a button, temper sensor, and I'm going to plug in this one here. It's an 8x8 LED display. And it's actually using the Max 7219 driver, but we have a custom version for Microbus that's wrapped up, and we'll get that running. And what I'll do is pull up my source code and to show you, and just again, you've seen this from Jorge already, but how quickly we can bring in these peripheral drivers. So here I've got the sample for the 8x8, and there's our code running because it's actually displaying text. Hopefully that's coming through on the camera. And if we can look at the source code for the sample, as Jorge mentioned, it's pulling in this case, it's referencing the package, but you would bring in the C8x8 NuGet that is available today and published, and then all the wonderful goodness you've already seen. Line 21 here, single line to instantiate. In this case, you saw earlier, we saw devices using the I2C bus. In this case, we're using the SPI bus. We create the SPI bus, and then there's also an enable pin here on D14, and that's it. That's how we instantiate. Again, now we have an object in C# that we can control. You saw earlier that Jorge was drawing graphics on the 240 by 240 display using our library called Micrographics. Well, we use the exact same library here on this 8x8 display of LEDs. Pretty fantastic. So you learn the API once, and now you can control. Won't go through all the details, but you can see similar things. We instantiate the Micrographics object. We are setting up a font. In this case, the font is a 4x8 pixels font, nice and small for our 8x8 display. We got a message, and then just a little bit of good old-fashioned C# to scroll that text. And again, I love this. We're building hardware. We're not worrying about the soldering. We can prototype. We can swap parts in quickly. Just a ton of fun. And I love seeing the innovation in the industry here. Things like Grove, Quick, Microbus, really fantastic, really unlocking a lot of capabilities.
Yeah, and I wanted to interject that it's also kind of cool that we have a D-pad button array there, directional pad. And from our public contribution, there is somebody who has been working on a game, a 2D gaming engine for Meadow, and I can't wait to start seeing that into playing some games and report some games into Meadow, and using that D-pad to control the little sprite around, and so it already gives you that little array. It can be like a little mini Nintendo there, which I think is pretty cool.
Fantastic. So, Randy, any questions we want to address? There are a few minutes left here.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've had a ton of questions in here. A lot of people really excited about the demo, people stating that they really like the idea. They don't have to do any soldering on this particular thing. I know I'm excited about the product and not having to stick a wire in every hole and then figuring out where I missed on my breadboard. I think we've got a couple different questions here. We have, and I think you've answered a lot of them here. Somebody had, and maybe you've answered the Klima one here. I've been posting them as they come through. I know we had a question on market segments, which I deferred to Slack for that. I don't know. Let's see here. Really, I don't have a lot of questions for folks that are on. If we didn't get a question answered for you, I've been following that chat, please post it here. And I think this is a good time too. If you have questions, even unrelated to ProjectLab, since we've got Adrian and Jorge here, please ask those questions as well. So if you have some questions related to that, please post them in there. We'll see if we get some responses on that.
And there's a couple of good ones that I know have been answered in the chat, but are worth addressing here as well. Nicholas asked, is this all .NET Standard 2.1 or is do .NET 6? And yeah, so we're conforming to the .NET Standard 2.1 spec, which is pretty fantastic, which means that our libraries are going to be compatible across really all modern .NET versions. And yeah, so .NET 6 is on the roadmap. It's not critical for our path today, but yeah, absolutely. Meadow is a modern .NET platform, and it's going to stay modern as .NET evolves. So absolutely, you'll keep your eyes open for that. I don't have a timeline today.
Yeah, we did the Meadow CLI. We had to finally turn it to make it support .NET 6, especially for the folks who are using the Mac M1 chip. We had to just simply turn in the support for that, but I think it has been a good experience. At least it works. And so, yeah, it's in the roadmap to also have it for Meadow as well, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, very nice. Again, supporting modern platforms. So yeah, it works on the M1 Max. Pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and some good questions coming in here at the end. How much will it cost? When will it ship? We're finalizing the pricing details on that and all of the shipping data around that. So look for more information. We'll be posting that in our email content that we send out as well as social media. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and a really great comment here. I know jumping back and forth, but yeah, so Meadow Linux, so another variation of the Meadow stack. So we're of course showing you the Meadow running on the Meadow F7 boards. But Meadow really is the software stack, and this is the hardware that we're running Meadow on today, but we can also run Meadow on Linux. And with that, we have the .NET runtime, and there we actually have a .NET 6 variation. And so that's the beautiful thing about supporting .NET Standard 2.1. We're conforming to that standard, which then is compatible with these versions of .NET.
Yeah, I would be happy to one day do a little webinar or show a quick session about Meadow Linux. So any of you folks who are already IoT developers and you have a Raspberry laying around, just join us and I'll show you how easy it will be to set up a Meadow Linux, and you can get a taste about Meadow Foundation, what it's all about, and see if you like the framework. We're always open for feedback. We're still in beta and we're still very receptive for our audience to see how we can improve it. But I think we have a very nice platform already. So.
Yeah, and I'll also say too, we've got a good group in our Slack channel. So those of you who are attending in, I am big on feedback. I'm the one who sent out some of the survey. I got some immediate feedback, made some changes to that. Love talking with developers, love talking with the community. So you can hit me up directly on Slack. You can find Adrian on Slack. You can find Jorge on Slack. We're pretty responsive on there. You can even hit the CEO, Brian. He's unfortunate, he's not able to join us today. He did have some technical issues, and we've been, we have an internal channel, and he's had some, appropriate words for his personal computer there. But please hit us up on Slack if you're interested in hey, I want content specific to Meadow.Linux. We were talking with Chris Tacky, Adrian, and Jorge and I were talking with him the other night. We were talking, hey, it'd be great to have a webinar around just Meadow.Linux. So always open to feedback, any issues. I see Bruce, you had an issue with the CLI. Please hit us up in there, hit up one of the channels in there. Usually other people can bring that up, and we can absolutely solve those there. Adrian, Jorge, anything else about the Slack channel or anything else? Oh yeah, and I can provide a link to that Slack channel there. It's on our main web page. Let me get that.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about this product. It was kind of like a funny idea, a funny story when it was created. We have similar boards like this that we use for our QAs to doing our release. And it was actually fun when I went on a trip and I had this little pull-up table on the plane, and I didn't want to bring a breadboard and fidget with all the wires and stuff. I just bring up my QA board and it has everything built in, and I can start QAing things like, what if we can make this into an actual board that has even more peripherals, and it's just so easy to bring just a lab, an IoT lab with you on the go. So it was a really good experience, and I think it's a really promising product, and I think it's going to be it's going to be helpful for those folks that are starting into IoT. No need of actually fidgeting of maybe an LED turns on and maybe you had it plugged in, connected backwards in a breadboard or things like that. We just remove that user error margin of error and just focus on just plugging it in and just start using all the peripherals that are properly connected.
Perfect. And I believe too, Adrian, the Hackboard does come with the Meadow F7 V2, correct? There was a
yes,
on
it does.
Compatibility and stuff. So yes.
And it is in the store now, which is really exciting. So we'll be shipping next week. In the store, comes with the F7 V2. And yeah, we're really excited with this product. There are some discounts, of course, if you buy multiple units as well. Really fantastic, and obviously a really powerful board for enterprise prototyping.
Awesome.
Mentioned this before, we'll say it again. So it is 100% open source hardware. It is free and open source. So yeah, you can, of course, build your own PCBs. You can even, you can grab the PCB schematics. You can even cut it down. We want to change the feature set on it. So yes, this is something we want to provide the community. We love it. We're using it. And of course, as Jorge mentioned, tons of samples available today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for everybody who've joined today. Adrian, Jorge, as always, thank you very much. And appreciate it. Yes, I do have some Rebels posters behind me. Big Star Wars fan, obviously. So thank you all for coming today. Again, any questions, take them into Slack. Anything we didn't answer, comments, feedback, we're open to all of it. Positive, negative, anything in between. We are we're developing product as fast as possible, adding new features fast as possible. The more feedback we get, the better that helps shape our company. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.